All right. Oh, welcome everyone to the Astro Priestess Roundtable, looking at the Sagittarius Solar Month. And it's another amazing month. I mean, we're just living in amazing times. That's just how it is. So it's just remarkable that we get to be here. We get to be a part of this process. We're the transition team. Our awareness on what's going on and how we're tuning in and how we're focusing our consciousness and our awareness and our heart energy is making a difference. At least I like to believe so. So it must be true. Anyway, so the sun will enter. Well, let me just say the day that we're recording this is the day of Mars conjunct the sun. And we'll probably talk a little bit more about that because there's a lot of Scorpio energies that are happening. And it's a seed point for the masculine energy, and how it's aligning its will, the masculine will, with divine will, instead of just running over everybody else's will, which is what's tended to happen in our dominator culture. So, so we could have imagine that as we align with our passion and what really is alive for us, that we can take action on that, and that's what's happening. So there may be more to say about that in a moment, but Sun is moving into Sagittarius on November 22nd, and Mars will follow a couple days later. And they'll also be in square to Saturn right away. So big energies there. I'm going to let others talk about that, because the thing I want to share is how when the sun moves into Sagittarius, and by the 24th, but it's already in range of a star called Dashuba. It is in the head of the Scorpion. It is considered the eye the eye of the dragon, or the eye of the Scorpion. And so every year the sun will pass by the star, and it's within 6 degrees for, a few days before and a few days after that point. And so this is a star that encourages us to, because it's the eye, it's how we see things. And I'm just fascinated because yesterday I was on a call where we were talking about dragon energy, and how that the dragons wound up having to leave the earth because humans no longer believed in them, or they turned them into something evil. But that's not necessarily the case. They can be guardians and protectors and powerful allies when we connect with them from that perspective. So I wanted to offer that as a possibility for people as we end this month of November and move into December, to connect with this star and see what is your perception about anything, but especially even about dragons. And one of the things that came up for me was the song Puff the Magic Dragon. When Jackie Paper stops believing in Puff, he disappears. He's no longer there. So are these the magical energies for us to tune back into, and then be able to connect with? And also what will happen after that. So December, like 1st or 2nd, the sun will be with Antares, the heart of the Scorpion. Now, mind you, Dashuba is around 2 degrees Sagittarius, and Antares is around 10. So the seasonal sign of Sagittarius, meaning the 30 days prior to the December solstice, that is a seasonal energy. And we're completing the solar year as we get to the December solstice. So, but it's overlaying the constellation of the Scorpion. And so if we're looking at Sagittarius as being the quest, the spiritual quest, the quest for truth, and then how is the Scorpion helping to inform that energy? And maybe having new insights and also about being connected to life force. It's not just the quest, a spiritual quest that's a kind of detached out there. And I'm expanding consciousness and awareness, but it's really the embodied, felt, passionate experience of that. So I just invite everyone to consider what that might be for you, and I'm going to pass this along.
I love all of that so much, especially the dragons, because I keep seeing the Mars cycle as that need to reframe the 12 labors of Hercules, and how one of the labor is like killing the dragon, and the dragon has such a feminine, raw, wild energy of just pure potential and life force, and how Hercules killing the dragon is really killing our life force. And how can we use the energy of Mars in this seeding point with the sun, beginning a cycle that when we get to next year, that will be the retrograde, is going to be powerful because it's in Cancer and it will be opposing Pluto. So it's like the seed is, we are preparing something. So I will say that it's very important during these days to be clear on our desires and our doing from who we are, and not from what we are supposed to desire, but what we truly desire and what is ours to really take action and stop killing dragons. So we just ride with them, and that dragon is our sexual energy, our inner, deeper being, that I think with Sagittarius has such a interesting connection with what you were saying, Colleen, of the Scorpio, and then the quest for truth. Like for me, Sag always has this energy of like the truth that comes from dying and being reborn. Like Sagittarius is after the death of Scorpio, double in a way, right? Because it comes after the seasonal Scorpio, but it also has the constellation of the Scorpio. So it's double. So it cannot be just optimism. That I think that is the part of Sagittarius when it's not connected to a deeper truth. That is just everything is going to be okay, and faith for the future, and is, oh, my truth has to be everyone's truth, right? Like there is this side of Sagittarius that is the shadow side of, no, it's your truth with big capital letters, and it works for you and you embody it 100%, but then other person can have a different truth, and that's completely fine, right? Like we don't, that dogmatism that is the side of Sagittarius when it's not healthy, and that beginning of Mars moving into the sign, the sun moving into Sagittarius with the square to Saturn, I feel it's already, like I can feel it already. And I will say that when we have these squares and oppositions, when we have the Natalie, it's always such a resonance. And for me, everything Mars, Saturn, I feel it to the core of my being. And with Mars, I always feel that it's especially when it's building up. And then when there is the conjunction or the square or the opposition, it gets a little bit like, okay, that's it. But it's such a clear energy with Mars, Saturn. Like there is no, it's obvious normally, right? And there is this external constriction sometimes to that life force that I think we have such an opportunity now with Uranus also there, like on the other side, to break free to a lot of inner constraints mentally, to just, like, we cannot be liked by everyone. Our truth cannot be everyone's truth, but that doesn't mean that we have to apologize for being assertive. Like being assertive doesn't mean that everyone has to agree with me. It's just like, this is my truth 100%. And you can believe something different, and we're fine with that. So I think that all of this is going to be a lot in the first days of these Mars and Sun and the square to Saturn in Pisces.
I love both of what you both said so much. And I do think that you're totally right that this Sun and Mars square Saturn in Pisces is really bringing in discernment around the difference between something like blind optimism versus like radical heart-centered truth and optimism. And I think that's really, it's a precarious space. So much of Sagittarius is about finding our single pointed focus so that we're not scattering our energy. So there has to be that, like, I have to come back to a belief that serves me. I have to come back to a worldview that serves me. I have to come back to a perspective where I feel open enough to go and try things, especially because if you think about when Sagittarius is happening in the story of the zodiac, it's when the sunlight is at its weakest. So it's not coming from this like, oh, you know, Aries sun, the sun is bright, Leo sun, it's the height of the summer. It's a dying sort of coming into the center. It's really, the way I see it is that it's fueled and it's illuminated by the spirit within. So we require that faith. We require that radical optimism to keep going, but we're always in that relationship with the real life. I think this overlaps really nicely with the conversation of Sagittarius ruling natural law as well, because we can have all sorts of ideas and beliefs about something that's like antithetical to nature. And I've noticed that when we tend to gravitate towards those kinds of truths, like an example would be like, I am only, you know, worthy of love if I have XYZ money or something like that. Like that's a false truth that our society teaches and preaches. And we, you know, that's an example of, I think, that dogmatism that can happen. We all kind of fall prey to it. But then there's another connection with like, okay, this is my nature of my being, and this is how I go and seek worth out in the world and in right relationship with resource and in right relationship with the cycles of nature and who I am. And we can be talking about the same themes, but it's very much like the approach. It's like, where is the arrow pointed and what is the goal behind it? Like, what is the intention? And so I think that always happens with the mutable signs. It's like everything is like two sides of the same coin. We could be talking about the same thing, but there's going to be multiple perspectives, and there's going to be the shadow expression, and then there's going to be the higher expression. But I do feel like Saturn is going to help us bring more focus, bring more clarity to what is really of highest service. And I always think of like the blinders on a horse, you know, especially if you are training a horse, right? Like you don't want the horse to be scared and be like overwhelmed and see like too many things at its back or at its side. Like you kind of want it to be looking here so that it's not scared and overwhelmed by all of the other things. Like sometimes I think Saturn can offer that to us. It's like, do we need to focus our vision a little bit more so that we're not overwhelmed and distracted by all of the potential opportunities and, you know, flying our arrows in all of the different directions because we are, you know, not tapped in to what is our truth, what is natural law. So I'm very much looking forward to this. It's also my solar return season. So yay, I love Sagittarius energy.
Oh, I love that. I love just receiving all of your beautiful wisdom from everyone who's shared so far. And I always love Sagittarius season. It, to me, it often feels like this like breath of fresh air. I should say a fire, I guess, because it's a fire sign, of you know, this like hopeful energy after. And especially I think most of us have kind of been in it since eclipse season. We had an intense eclipse season, and you know, October we had that Libra solar eclipse that squared Pluto. And then we've been through Scorpio season, and it's just a constant theme I'm hearing from so much intensity, so much purging coming up. There's beautiful energy and all that composting energy, but most of us have been in the intensity. And so I just feel as we move into Sagittarius, just energetically, intuitively, it's like we'll get this like, you know, spark of inspiration. And I'm really looking forward to that. And Sagittarius is like, it's being a student of life. And so it's the wisdom that comes from the lived experience, our real life lived experience, going out in the world, having experiences. And so I always feel like a great, invitation during Sagittarius season is like, how can I be a student of life? How can I let my like lived experiences of right here, right now, teach me? And if you have an opportunity for an adventure, and I often find like just little adventures in my daily life that are like, most people probably wouldn't even consider it an adventure, but you can turn anything into an adventure. So having that perspective, I think, can just bring so much like richness into our lives. And I feel as we start Sagittarius season, I think a few of you have mentioned, we have the sun, and Mars square to Saturn and Pisces. So it might actually feel sometimes with that squaring energy to Saturn, we might feel like, oh, I'm having a little bit of a setback here, or things aren't working according to plan. But there's this invitation for this new perspective shift, and to allow Saturn to teach us where might we need to realign something, where might we need to bring in a little bit of like practicality or groundedness, which is maybe paradoxical with Saturn and Pisces. But there's this, I consider all the mutable signs, the multidimensional signs. There's a lot of opportunity for kind of like through different perspective to have like timeline shifts over this Sagittarius season. And I love, Mara, what you were talking about. It's really brilliant on this like reframing of Hercules, and instead of killing the dragon, right? Like with this Mars and we're in this Mars Sun seeding energy in Scorpio that we're experiencing right now as we're filming this. And it's like, how can our inner Mars honor the dragon, right? Our life force energy, the feminine, honor the dragon, defend the dragon, support the dragon. And so I feel, one other layer of this patriarchal culture that we've lived in, I like to say the powers that should not be, it's really been this, they've had this war on our life force energy, where we've had this society that's really wanted to keep people just kind of grinding away, just running that hamster wheel, distracted, just, barely getting by. And when we do that, it depletes our life force energy. So a lot of this like shift, I feel like, is like reigniting our life force energy and claiming our life force energy. And with this Mars and Sun conjunction and Scorpio plus North Node and Aries plus which are both, kind of Mars signs, plus this Leo Venus cycle that we're in now, it's like, if you're not all in on something, if you're not passionate about it, if it doesn't make you feel alive, it's probably not for you. So, this is like some things to consider. Are we moving in a direction that we're passionate about, that sparks our aliveness, right? Because I feel like that's also this rekindling of our life force energy, is a lot of this collective shift that we're going through to live lives that we actually want to live, that we're excited to live.
Oh, yes, so much so. And it is an adventure. It is a quest. It is a process to get there. The other thing I just wanted to say about Sagittarius season and this, the sign of Sagittarius in the season, it is a synthesis of everything that's happened in the solar year. So that's another, and I think Saturn's really here to help with that as we start out with the Saturn square to the Sun and Mars as we move into this season. So, so maybe think about, what is it that you're synthesizing? What are you bringing together? And how is that in service to something greater? That's another thing that Sagittarius is interested in. How do we serve something greater? So and Jamie, thank you for leading us into Venus because Venus is going to be first of all, she's going to be square Pluto as she's moving in. Well, she's going to be square Pluto right before she moves into Scorpio, but a few days before that, on November 29th, she's going to be conjunct the South Node. And also Pluto's very still closely square the nodes. We've had this long, really since the node, even before the nodes entered Aries, Libra, Pluto was in a fairly close square to all that. And it's been defining for us, what is it that we need to die to so we can be reborn to something new? What is it in the past that holds us back? Or what is it within the past that could help move us forward that we're not connected to? So how do we connect with that so that we can move more fully towards our intended divine destiny in a powerful way. So this Venus conjunction with the South Node is highlighting the past, and Pluto, of course, is squaring all that. And so it's, again, what are we letting go of? And then Venus will move into Scorpio on December 3rd, but it squares Pluto just hours, the exact square is just hours prior to that. So Pluto's still at play, helping us to get at the deeper core of the thing, so that what's the shadow, what can we transmute, transform? What is it that holds us back from really experiencing our passion? What we really want to be engaging and tuning into, and not, as has brilliantly been said already by, I think, everyone here, not what we think we're supposed to be doing, or what we have to do to survive. And sometimes survival is a thing, and yes, we need to do that. But if we can start also tuning into the energies that light us up, that get us excited, that what we want to really experience in this life, and give some attention to that every day this month. Ideally, give some attention to that. What gets you excited? And if you don't know what gets you excited, then start with things that interest you. And then if that, and go through your list of what interests you. And if that's not it, then you need to go deeper. There's something that's holding you back, and you need to go deeper. And Pluto can help you release that, transmute and transform that piece. And then on December 9th, we will have the Venus and the Moon together. They'll be exact on December 9th at the heart chakra gate. So this is all about bringing in the energy of the heart. What do we passionately feel? And what are the feelings we've suppressed, repressed, and denied? If we've been, because, sometimes it's like, well, just, soldier on, get over it, move on, whatever. And that's not helpful either. We need to feel what we feel. So giving ourselves permission to feel. So finding a practice that works for you. There's trauma release exercises. There are shaking practices you can do. There's, crying and screaming into a pillow if you need to get out energy that is stuck inside of you. You want to release that energy so that you can get to the life force that's been suppressed because we've repressed our feelings. So that's a big opportunity. And then the final thing that will happen with Venus, and other people will go in more depth on all of this, but it's going to be opposite Uranus on December 20th, right before the solstice, and around 20 degrees of Scorpio. And I don't know if you've all been noticing this, but it's like everything. The new moon that we just had was at 20 degrees Scorpio, and the Mars Sun conjunction is around the 21 degrees or whatever it is now. There's just so much that's been happening around this point. So Venus will be at 20 Scorpio, Mars will be at 20 Taurus. Uranus will be at 20 Taurus, and unexpected, unplanned for events that can help us move into the new way of being are possible at this time. So take it away.
I love everything. And I'll say that for me, that Venus in Libra is like with the South Node and the square to Pluto, and then entering a Scorpio, I keep seeing that releasing the need to please everyone that I mentioned before. I think with Libra and the South Node there is being very clear that our self-worth cannot be based on what other people think of us. And it cannot be like that validation, that codependency of the value that I give to myself and to my work and the life force. And I keep seeing, like, it's so interesting that Venus is the planet of the economy and the finances as well. And how, like, before recording, we were talking about that. And I see it in so many women that what is impeding, like the block is money. Like the block at the end of the day to really fully express who you are, like to really fully live the life that you really want to have is money in many cases, right? Like for sure there are other cases, but most of the times money is involved some way, or shape, or form. And it's like, it is okay to be spiritual and to desire money, and to really value the spiritual work as well as part of what we are bringing to the table. And I see it like with the Libra, and then in Scorpio. First in Libra is that wanted to look always good for everyone. And what I was saying, like, it's impossible. It's truly impossible. Like, if we are in truth and in integrity, maybe some people will be triggered by that. And that's okay. Like, it doesn't have anything to do with the person who is being themselves. It's just the other person, right? Like, being activated because of something. So it's like releasing that in Libra. And then in Scorpio, the shame that we have for really believing in our self-worth and our values and having pleasure in life as well. Like, there is this, like, no, if I just have this money, if I just have this couple, if I just have this nice thing. But it's like, there is this apology all the time of, like, in our desires. And I feel this is so important, to really allow ourselves to be as big as we truly are, and to desire in the same dimension. Like, we are huge, like, human beings are huge. So the power that we have to create change and to create beauty is huge as well. So it's like, the more people truly embrace that huge power, the more we are going to change everything in society. So I think there is this need to get, just strip off that need for validation. I think everything goes back to that. Like, that's it. And with the opposite, like the whole journey that Kelly was describing, I think in the opposition with Uranus is when we just say, that's it. This is enough. This point is so sensitive already that we are just like, this is me, naked, vulnerable, and powerful at the same time.
Ooh, yes, everything. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think money is the final frontier because it's prosperity consciousness ultimately. And if we think about all of the ways that money has been used improperly in the world, I don't want to make this about, masculine and feminine, but certainly the patriarchy. It's like, imagine what, highly heart-centered, conscious women in power do with their money. They do very different things with their money, right? Like, we invest in our communities, we invest in our sisterhoods, we invest in what we want to see in the world ahead. So I absolutely think there's something so huge with all of that. This is a little bit going back to what we were talking about before that you mentioned, Maud, the dragon energy. And we're also coming into, in 2024, the year of the dragon in Chinese astrology. And it's connected with prosperity and abundance. And if we kind of link that to Jupiter cycles, which the Chinese astrology system is also based on, every 12 years, we come back to the same, part of that cycle. There's something to be said here around, this links to Jupiter for me. And so Venus will first, before she opposes Uranus, she will also oppose Jupiter on that same day of her Venus gate at the heart chakra. So there's a lot of this, opening our heart to, wanting more, to expanding our reach. I also think in Scorpio in general, it's releasing the fear of our power. And I think this is probably not new to anybody, but women, we can be very afraid of our power because it means we might be intimidating. We might scare people. They might be like, oh, she's powerful. Like, and it's so interesting because every powerful woman I've ever met, I always feel so enriched in her presence and feel lucky to know her. I'm never like, oh, turn that down. Like, ever. It's never been that experience for me. I'm always like, wow, thank you, because you're reminding me that I have that too. So I feel like there's going to be, with this opposition energy, because it always brings up other people, the ability to see the reflection of your power in others, and then maybe see, okay, this is a way that I also hold this, and then this is my unique expression of that. It's also really interesting to think about how Venus is hosting both Jupiter and Uranus because they're in her signs of Taurus. So she's really, I think, like that cheerleader in the back saying, yes, we want to see a new economic system. Yes, it's going to happen through cultivating a different relationship, not only with money, but with ourselves, with the people in our community. I mean, we have this idea that it's money that makes everything happen, but no, it's people. People do everything. People make it happen. So all of this, I think, is shifting, and it's just bringing more of that liberation awareness. And so I think the question is for you, especially because we're bringing in all of this conversation around Venus and Scorpio, it's like, what part of your cycle do you ever feel shame around? We have, all of us, these beautiful cycles, and there are going to be certain parts of the cycle where you either feel more productive or you feel more comfortable asking for what you want, you're more bold and courageous. And then there's going to be parts of the cycle where maybe there's a little bit more shame, or like, oh, I feel like I need to hide this part of my cycle. I need to hide that I'm having a hard time, or I need to hide that this conversation is difficult to have. And then that's like where we put up that face and we hide. And I think that's a big part of the Scorpio awareness too, is that it's probably, the empowerment is probably going to happen if you confront those parts that you're afraid of, where you are hiding. And it's probably those parts that you're going to have to show a little bit more, because those are the vulnerable parts. But those are often, it's like Jung talks about the golden shadow. It's like there's some gold in that shadow. That's where the treasure is. It's like if you can admit that part that feels so scary to express or admit about yourself, oh my gosh, can you imagine the liberation potential on the other side of that? It's like, can it just come back out into the light? So that is a very big, beautiful opportunity for you this month. And I hope that you get to feel that in yourself.
Ooh, I'm getting chills, Nura. I love that. And just, I love that you brought in that the Venus Moon conjunction is opposite Uranus and Taurus, Venus's sign. And Venus is our heart's desires. And I sense as Venus is moving through Scorpio, especially this heart chakra, Venus Moon conjunction, opposite Jupiter. Sometimes I think most of us have something we desire so deeply, or we've experienced this at some point in our life, something our heart desires so deeply. And there's like this wholeheartedness, there's actually like this purity to it. But there's some self-limiting belief of, I can't have this desire. It won't happen for me. Maybe there's a self-limiting belief, other people get what they want, or other people can have this, but I can't have it. All these things from our unconscious. But sometimes we want something so deeply that we don't even acknowledge it within ourselves. We push it into our subconscious because we feel like we can't have it, or we're not worthy of it. Venus is our self-worth as well. And so this is a really powerful opportunity to release these blocks, to release these things from our unconscious, and to really allow what we truly desire to come into our conscious awareness. So where have we been suppressing it and denying it with all these self-limiting beliefs? There's this really beautiful healing opportunity. And because it's opposite, this Jupiter retrograde in Taurus, again, there's like something perhaps around abundance. Jupiter is also, it's like, to me, Jupiter represents living a life of the highest meaning and purpose. And so what is it, something around what feels connected to our purpose that we feel like, gosh, I couldn't do that, or I couldn't have that, or I couldn't be that, or whatever it is. There's this really powerful release, and there's an opportunity to really get in touch with our heart's desires. This is also about Scorpio, like, what are our deepest desires? And so there's something super powerful around that. And then as Venus goes to oppose Uranus, near the end of Sagittarius season, I think, as Kaylin said, as we're going into the solstice here, again, like, just really pay attention to what's going on. Like, Venus opposite Uranus, again, like, it can be a really triggering energy. Uranus will shake us to wake us up, right? It can be this jolting energy. Uranus wants to like shatter anything that is holding us back from being liberated. Like, we're living our most radical, wildly radical, authentic lives. And so like notice, I mean, there could be some intense stuff going on. And with the Uranian energy, when we use our free will to self-liberate ourselves, as opposed to being forced by life to liberate ourselves, things I tend to enjoy it more when I do that for myself, right? It tends to go a little smoother. And smooth is not a word you even say with Uranus, but just notice like what's coming up, unconscious things, where are you holding yourself back? I mean, just kind of, it's a really powerful opportunity to just kind of notice and to use your free will to self-liberate yourself, if that, if that aligns with you.
Oh, I love this so much, what everybody's sharing. So we're going to look now at coming into the solstice time. If there's anything that was missed that anybody feels like we need to talk about, feel free to do that. And we'll be wrapping this up. But December 21st is the December solstice. And I've shared this many times before, but it's when the sun, when it reaches 0 degrees Capricorn, is currently located on the cross of our solar system, with the cross of with the line of our solar system, the plane of our solar system crossing the plane of our galaxy. It creates a galactic cross near galactic center. And so this is a powerful time to tune in, to set intentions. What do you want to see for the next solar year? And really feel into them, not just with the mind, not with what you think you should do. I mean, this has all been so much about the feeling realm. So feel into them. And it doesn't have to be heroic. It can just be that you want to be more of who you are. Could be as simple intention as that, that you want to really show up and shine your light into the world, so that it doesn't mean you have to do anything, just be that. So we have that. And then, one thing we haven't talked about yet, Mercury going retrograde on December 13th in Capricorn, and it will be with the sun, Cazimi, on December 22nd, still in the solstice window, because we could look at the solstice window as being 3 days, the day before, the day of, and the day after. And so it's in that powerful solstice time that it's going to be with the sun at 0 degrees Capricorn. And so offer opportunities to seed, do further seeding. And again, through our perception, how we communicate, how we creatively express, that's very much what Mercury's all about. So I know there's more you all have to say about that. So let's passing this on.
Well, just
my
speaking
gosh.
of,
Go ahead,
sorry.
Jamie.
Go ahead. Oh, thank
You
you.
go.
Speaking of Mercury retrograde, we do have, I find that's a really interesting, the Gemini full moon that we have on November 27th. It's at 4 degrees, moon 4 degrees Gemini, sun 4 degrees Sagittarius. They're squaring Saturn at 0 degrees Pisces. And, 4 is this number of numerology. It's about foundation, right? Building foundation, structure. It's like the 4 elements, right? The physicality. And with this mutable full moon, which is mutable, very changing energy, right? I really see this opportunity. Gemini is about fresh perspective, the childlike awe and wonder, that beginner's mind. There's this opportunity to embody that energy, to kind of align with a new reality, a new perspective, a new timeline, and to ground it in here. And especially with the square to Saturn. And, the Sagittarius, I love Sagittarius energy, right? It's like being the student of life. And it's the wisdom that we accumulate throughout our lives. But the kind of shadow side is sometimes we think we know, right? The dogma that can come with Sagittarius. It's like life works this way. And this Gemini full moon is an opportunity to step back, have some fun. Gemini is about fun, right? And remember that I don't know everything. And how can we take that like beginner's mind, that childlike off? I met the moment like I've never met it before. What is here for me? Because there are so many more opportunities available to us in every moment than we ever realize. We just tend to get in these habitual ways of being. It's like X, Y, and Z are the 3 options that I have here, when there's like A to Z, so many options here. And so just, I think there's an invitation to like kind of step back and see, what are other ways that things could be in my life? And there's a lot new like kind of timeline opportunities I sense from that full moon.
I just want to add to the full moon piece real quick, and that is it's an out of bounds full moon, and that Gemini is also the trickster energy. So an out of bounds trickster wild card moon in Gemini is a double wild card trickster energy that we can play with and have fun with, and not take ourselves so seriously. So just wanted to add that.
Mhm. I think that'll be a really nice setup coming into Sagittarius season, and especially because right after that, we have Mercury stationing retrograde in Capricorn. And Capricorn is, of course, a lot more of a serious, practical sign. But I do think that it's such an important synthesis, speaking of Sagittarian synthesis, to actually bring that joy into Capricorn, to have the joyful responsibility. Like, it doesn't have to feel heavy. My favorite word in relation to Capricorn is simply reverence, like reverence for life. I'm here. I'm aware that my life has meaning, and so I'm going to give my best to my life. And it's just that simple, like no extra pressure needed. But that alone helps me to show up responsibly because I care about it. And so I think that's really what Capricorn invites. And I think with the Mercury stationing retrograde and that carrying us through into the solstice, there's this reminder that as deep as we are able to go into ourselves at this time of year is as high as we'll be able to grow next summer. We have to kind of be able to go within and not feel like, oh, this is a time to like be super productive and scatter our forces and be like really busy with the holiday season. And I mean, I love the holidays. I think that's like, there's this joyful exuberance of Sagittarius, but then there's this like quiet calm of Capricorn that comes right after. And so just maybe tuning into your vision and then creating some space so that you have more time to reflect and be with, okay, I might not need to create a whole lot on the external field right now, but what I cultivate inside myself is what ultimately will matter in the end. So again, stepping out of the mind, anytime we have a Mercury retrograde, it's a time to remember it's not just about our logical, A to B thinking. It's a very intuitive time, and especially that happening at a new moon. It's like we have these like double seedings. It's like the new moon will carry that Mercury retrograde energy through the whole month ahead. And then also, because Mercury will be retrograde at the solstice, that will carry through the whole season of winter. So there's this very reflective energy that we're coming through. And I think it makes a lot of sense. Like you mentioned right at the beginning, Kaylin, we are the ones in the time of transition, like we're the transition team, but part of transition is reflection. And I think one of the greatest tools that Capricorn has for reflection is remembering and being in reverence for all that brought you here to this moment so that you can go forward without the unnecessary baggage, just with a lighter heart. So that's what I have about that. And I think it'll be a really beautiful, beautiful new moon and solstice.
I love that so much. And I think it's a beautiful season, always the Capricorn part of like the planning of the next year. And in this time with Mercury also retrograde is that in Capricorn is like, how can we build the structures that are solid but organic? Because at the end of the day, Capricorn is not the CEO who is totally detached and is in a cement building that is like out of touch of nature. That's the patriarchal Capricorn. But the real Capricorn, I think, like the wise person that knows that sometimes we need some planning to have the space for spontaneity and for freedom. And so that Mercury is very nice to really tap into the whole year ahead. I always do it in Capricorn season, like the planning and the dreaming into what is it that I want to really manifest in a very tangible way. And with that Mercury retrograde is like what the structures in your life don't allow growth. And then sometimes you just need to do a little bit like a tree or a plant. You just need to cut a little bit, add a little bit more nurture, be patient as well, because with Capricorn things don't flower in a day. It takes time and love and nurture. So depending on the projects that we have in mind, some projects will be flowering in 2 days, but some things are really needing the time. And globally, what we are doing in many ways is to really seed a different society. So that takes time, and it's happening already. And there are sprouts, like is flowering already, but at the same time, there are parts of ourselves that we need to be patient, that more is coming. And how can we be more and more integrating that organic wisdom of a culture that really allows growth and life, and changing your mind as well. Like, it's okay to change it. Like, you can have plans, and then the energy of the day comes and you're like, no, this is not what is meant to be. And it's completely fine as well, right? So I think that the Mercury retrograde in Capricorn is that wisdom of, I'm going to grow something really big here. It's a tree, like it's a really robust and solid tree, and I'm going to be patient for the tree to come up when it's ready.
Oh, this has been so good. I love all this wisdom. It's so great. And so we are wrapping this up and just thank you for being a part of this with us and joining us with envisioning a new earth, a new way of being, a new way of being within ourselves, a new way of having a greater collective reality experience. And Jamie, as you're saying quite often, and one of my favorite sayings too, it's like we're creating a new timeline. So let's do that together as we navigate this Sagittarius solar month, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the Capricorn solar month.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.